We're not muted anymore. Hi, everyone. You missed no conversation anyway.
We just talked about the new Windows Phone
Mm.
that's coming.
Yeah, running Windows 10 Mobile.
Microsoft killed off Windows Phone just so they could
Surprise us.
reset the record to relaunch Windows Phone. Now it's gonna be different this time.
Yeah, they mean it now.
You mean?
All right. I'm ready to go when you're.
Just let me do Mixer. Hold on. Log into that. Come on,
We're not muted
mixes.
anymore. Hi, everyone. Oh, I can hear my video. You missed no conversation anyway.
We just talked about the video quality, so I can save my bandwidth. Mute that. All right. Our skin tones don't quite match, but that's all right. Got a lot of bright colors going on. All right, I am now recording.
I am now recording.
All right, 3, 2, 1. Welcome to the Windows Central Podcast, episode 158 for December 13th, 2019. Hey everyone, Dan Rubino here, joined by Zach Bowden for another exciting episode of the Windows Central Podcast, where we're going to be talking about all things Microsoft, Surface, Windows, Xbox, and all that good stuff. And this week, well, of course, we got some insider updates, because what would this podcast be without an update on where Windows 10 is and where it's going? Also, the Xbox Series X surprise announcement. We actually did, our games editor, Jez Corden, was getting some, just before, a few hours before the Games Awards, that there was rumors that they're going to be actually announcing stuff around this. And sure enough, there was not only was the name, they actually showed off the console, which was a big deal. So we'll talk about that, what we think about it, about the name and all the good stuff, and of course a controversial design. We'll also talk about Surface Hub 2X. Not that any of you are going to buy one, but apparently it's going to ship with Windows 10X, and why that may be a big deal, what that actually means, and of course, what was it going to ship with before. And finally, we talk about Windows 7 EOL news. So as you may or may not know, Windows 7 is not it's coming to an end. I chuckle because I have a friend that works in IT, and it's his job to know this stuff. I won't name him, but he didn't know Windows 7 was going to be EOL in January. He was thinking it was summertime or something, and I was just like, he still is running, was running Windows 7 on his home PC. He just never got around to updating it. I was
Terrible.
This is infuriating. I actually gave him a desktop PC with Windows 10 on it just to I'm like, here, just do this. This is dumb. But he didn't use a home PC. I mean, he has Surface devices that he mostly uses. So he uses, I think, the desktop PC for torrenting, like it's 1999.
Yeah.
Anyway, before we get started, as you may or may not notice, if you're watching this on video live on YouTube and or Mixer, or you can rewatch it on mixer.com/Windows Central, you may notice Zach and I are wearing matching sweaters. And we don't typically dress the same, but we're doing it for this episode because Microsoft is doing their hashtag Windows Ugly Sweater theme again this year. This was started last year by Donna Sakar, who was doing the Insider program, and she's always just having fun with the community, doing stuff, whether it's Ninja Cats or sweaters. And so she came up with this sweater, and it was I believe it was I thought at first it was a Windows 3.1, but I think it's actually a Windows 95.
Yeah,
Their
it's
logo
95.
kind of stayed the same between those times. So they sent out these sweaters. It was to influencers and people in media, as well as people who were just volunteers in the Microsoft community, who were doing stuff with their technology and all this kind of stuff. And well, Don is now not doing the Insider program, but it was still picked up by Microsoft PR, who I think went a little bigger this year with it. And so now we're sporting this new version, which is the Windows XP sweater, ugly sweater. And it has a little XP written everywhere and a big logo. And they sent it in an awesome box. It was like the original box XP shipped in, except it was big now with the sweater. And there's all these little puns on it, which was definitely pretty funny. And so this year, again, it went out to people in the media, and as well as MVPs that work with Microsoft, also people like education and just like normal people who just went above and beyond supporting Microsoft and Windows, using it in their classrooms or coming up with cool projects. And it's just a neat thing to, sort of give back. Now, they're not for sale, which is unfortunate. I know many of you would probably want to buy them, but as far as I know, there's no plans to do this. It's sort of just an insider thing. But still, we're rocking them. I'm not a huge sweater fan, but it's just not my style. No. I'm a military, like I wear more military wear most of the time, but I'll sport the sweater for the podcast. It's fine.
It's a cool sweater. The design is very, very cool, I admit.
Yeah. So, Zach got one, I got one, and quite a few people. And, of course, Tom Warren got one, and Brad Sams got one, and Rich Woods got one from NeoWin. So, it's good times. I like when Microsoft does this stuff. Obviously, it's a lot of fun to support the community. And, when they're not being nerds, they're being this kind of nerd. So it's kind of fun. Should also mention there is an Xbox ugly sweater. That's not an official Microsoft one, but that's through. Do you know the company that's selling those?
I do not know.
I forgot. I think I bought stuff through them before. I know Richard Devine, one of our writers, has one of those. So if you type like Xbox ugly sweater, I'm sure you'll come up on the link for it. But you can get one of those, which is kind of cool.
Yeah. The question is, what will next year's theme be for the ugly sweater? We've done Windows 95 now. Now Windows XP. Will it be Windows Vista?
We did skip Millennium Edition.
Yeah, true, we did.
Which, again, that logo didn't change much anyway, and I'm not sure we would want to celebrate ME. Although I was a fan of ME. I was fine with ME, but we've well established that I have pretty low standards on being satisfied with things in life. So, do we just skip Vista and go right to Windows 7? I don't know.
Maybe they should do a Windows Phone one, because Windows Phone's dead now.
I feel like some of the people who were getting this sweater were like major influencers on YouTube who aren't necessarily Microsoft focused.
Yep.
Would be mad, upset, or confused at a Windows Phone themed sweater. They're like, didn't you guys kill this?
Yeah.
Maybe they can make an insider sweater for those people.
Yeah, that'd be cool. Or a McLaren sweater. No.
Yeah. I'm not sure Mary Jo got one. She usually doesn't accept stuff from Microsoft when it comes to stuff like this. She's like a more serious journalist.
A real journalist, unlike the rest of us.
Yep. Yeah, that's fine. I'm not trying to be the New York Times here. I'm just a dude writing on tech I like. That's fine. But yeah, we'll take our sweaters. Anyway, let's get to some real news. So Zach, tell us what's new with the Windows 10 Insider Program.
Basically nothing. Same as last week. We're at the end of it now. December 13th, which is today as of recording this, is the day Microsoft is hoping to sign off on 20H1. I've not heard anything from sources that suggest that's happened yet, so perhaps it'll happen later today. Either way, we're basically done with 20H1. I will mention that they did add a couple cloud end features to the search UI with the last few builds. Quick searches are now a thing at the very bottom, so if you open up the search UI on the taskbar, if you are in the A/B test, of course, there are now a few buttons along the bottom that suggests things that you can search for quite quickly. For example, weather, top news, today in history, and new movies. This is a very Cortana-esque thing that's now been transformed into searches. So this is another example of how Microsoft is stepping back from the idea of an AI
Cortana
assistant.
Is like, yeah.
Yeah, and it's now a search function rather than an AI assistant function, which is fine. Also, some people are seeing the Microsoft rewards, your points showing up in the search UI now as well. I saw that show up today. I know that's been in testing for a little while, but I think more people got it today, which is very nice indeed. But other than that, that's pretty much it for 20H1 stuff. We should probably be getting manganese builds any day now, probably next week, I assume.
And what do we expect with manganese?
Nothing. Well, I don't.
Wow.
So I don't know. And honestly,
are you going on vacation for 6 months? Or?
Yeah. So I haven't heard anything specific for desktop when it comes to manganese. We know 20H2, as it will be a big release of Windows 10X, as it will be the initial launch version for that platform. So I wouldn't be surprised if not much shows up on desktop. At the same time, we could actually start seeing things from 10X ported over to desktop almost immediately. Things like the new start menu, perhaps the new action center, maybe some new windowing controls if Windows 10X introduces that sort of stuff, some new icons. In fact, on the subject of icons, Microsoft did a whole thing this week talking about how they've redesigned hundreds of icons using Fluent Design. That's all for Windows 10X, but I wouldn't be surprised if all those icons show up on desktop as well. Perhaps with 20H2, which is the manganese builds we're about to test. So maybe some UI aesthetic stuff showing up with 20H2. But I think this release will be primarily focused on Windows 10X, which is, it's not surprising. That's the big deal for 2020. And it makes sense that Microsoft is putting all of its effort into that right now.
Well, that sounds mildly interesting. We did have a podcast last week where we spoke a lot about this, about the Insider program and where it's going and / the status of Windows 10. But yeah, someone's asking, commented like, who uses Windows 7 anymore? So
300
obviously,
million
I think
people.
I think our core audience, obviously, you guys don't. You
No.
you appreciate Windows 10 and Windows Hello and things like that. That said, I would say there are two groups of people that still run, probably three. There's the third group's the one my friend was in. He is just lazy, doesn't use his computer often enough to care to upgrade to Windows 10. He does have a Surface Pro laptop, and now he has a Surface Pro X. So he primarily uses those devices. So he lives in Windows 10 most of the time. So you have people like that who just have a computer around that they just haven't gotten around to doing it. You also have two other groups. So I would say they're gamers who just prefer the performance of Windows 7 because for a lot of people, Windows 7 has just a lot less overhead in terms of services running in the background. And when they're really trying to stretch out performance, it's a little bit more lean, or I should say it's easier to shut off things that they don't want. So I'm not really sure there's anyone's done an actual like side by side and benchmarks if it really is a difference or it's just perception.
I think what it is with people preferring Windows 7 for that reason is that Windows 7 is like a very stock operating system. It's tied to no services because this is back when Microsoft wasn't really tying its Microsoft account services into the operating system. It's just a plain operating system. You have a local account. There's no apps that are pre-installed from some store that tie into your Microsoft account or pulling down information from a Microsoft service. All of the apps that are pre-installed are local apps like Windows Mail or Notepad, Paint.
Wow.
Very basic, essential apps. And that's what a lot of people like at Windows 7. It's essentially, if you look at it in the Android world, the version of
stock,
the version of Android on the Pixels is Windows 10. The version of Android that like stock Android that hasn't been touched is Windows 7. That's the kind of difference people are looking at, and it depends on who you are. Some people actually like Windows 10's integration with the Microsoft account and services and being always up to date and online,
syncing things across device.
And some people don't like that. Some people just want the operating system to act as a platform for other things that they're doing, and that I totally get that as well. And unfortunately, Windows 10 isn't that.
Yep, and then I'd say the third group are the tinfoil hat people, and I should make completely too light of that, but there are people who just do not like having any data sent back to Microsoft, even if it's anonymized, it's not tied to an account, it's used for telemetry, what we call telemetry, basically data usage. So when Zach and I talk about how many people don't, rearrange the live tiles on start menu, and that's one reason why Microsoft is sort of getting away from that model. Well, they know that because they see data on what people are doing. Now, they're not actually recording your device and how your tiles are. They just see if people are rearranging. So that kind of anonymized usage on stuff gets sent to Microsoft. And between that and the services running in the background and Microsoft account, some people just don't want any of that. So, they think Windows 7 is, more secure, more private. I guess it depends what you're doing on your computer. I think for a lot of regular people, this isn't a big deal. If you're involved in criminal enterprise or doing something illegal, you may want to do Windows 7. I imagine maybe it gets weird, right? Because you could say it's more secure in that sense, but then the converse to that is actually Windows 7 is less secure than Windows 10. Mm-hmm. It's more susceptible to hacking. It doesn't have as much patches. Windows 10, is regarded as a more secure operating system because it's updated so frequently. So I think it cuts both ways. But now Microsoft isn't ditching Windows 7 because they hate people. It's just a matter of resources.
It's an old operating. It's 10 years old. That's ancient in tech years. It's like Microsoft had the same problem with Windows XP, where when Windows XP went out of support, there were still millions of people using it, and the same is going to happen with Windows 7. We don't know exact numbers, but based on like market reports from those advertising websites and whatnot, we guesstimate about 300 million people are still running Windows 7 who are connected to the internet. Now that could be mostly businesses, it could be a mix between businesses.
It could be even kiosks and things like that.
And exactly. And that's going to take a while to go away. Now, a lot of consumers still using Windows 7, I think, are just like old people or people who aren't tech savvy, who are just using an
or
old
use the
computer.
computer once in a while.
Yeah, exactly. Who
Yeah.
are likely not even going to move to another Windows PC when they're done with this one. They're probably just going to, use their phone full time, because a lot of people now can do everything that they need to do on a computer, on their phone or an iPad. And that's a big problem for Microsoft, but since they're all about services now and adopting iPad and stuff, that's not going to be a huge deal regardless. But yeah, I have a feeling that these 300 million users, most of them probably won't translate to Windows 10. I think they're just going to fizzle out as a number of people who no longer need Windows in their lives. And that's a shame, but oh well. Anyway, the reason we're talking about this is because Microsoft on January 15th announced, this week, that they will start throwing full screen pop-ups to Windows 7 users saying, hey, this operating system is now out of support. You need to sort that out. And the user will, of course, have the option to dismiss that if they don't want to deal with it and never see it again. Or they can go and buy Windows 10 or buy a new PC. I think what they're actually doing is pushing people to buy new PCs, because most Windows 7 PCs are super old with like spinning hard drives and stuff, and Windows 10 sucks on the spinning hard
Although
drive.
I have seen, getting back to the gamer thing, I've seen like iBuyPower, and when you would build a gaming PC, you go through the configurator, like, and I think even Dell and stuff like that would have an option to downgrade the operating system to Windows 7. That was for a few years, even just like last year, 2 years ago, that was still a thing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, but I guess starting January 14th, that will no longer be an option, because you can't sell an out support operating system. But I think if Windows 7 users don't upgrade to Windows 10, they can always upgrade to Windows 8, because that's still in support.
Yeah, and Buster McGee here saying, Buxter McGee, sorry, that you can still upgrade from Windows 7 to Windows 10.
So although unofficial, you can use your Windows 7 product key and it will activate Windows 10 just fine.
Yeah, this isn't like... Microsoft obviously knows this is a loophole.
Yes,
but
it's not a bug that they will fix.
Yeah,
they're letting you do it.
Yeah, they're letting you do it. So it's you don't need to actually go buy a Windows 10 license. You can just go install a Windows Insider build and do the same thing. So the other good thing about them having this hard deadline was they did really want to get not so much consumers, but businesses onto Windows 10, because it's a service model. So, they get the subscription services and all that, but it's also because of security reasons. Windows 10 is a more secure operating system. There's more management opportunities for IT. And so they actually do think it's just better for businesses to go to Windows 10. But if you just left it to businesses to be like, shift over your entire IT to Windows 10 and upgrade all your computers, and you didn't put a hard deadline on it, some companies would be like, oh, sure, we'll do it right away. But you'll have a lot of companies be like, well, we got to stretch that budget out. And, it would just go on for years and years and years. Meanwhile, Microsoft needs to save its resources. Like I know they have a lot of money, but they don't have why have a whole team dedicated still to Windows 7 maintenance when the future is Windows 10. Like, that's just not something you want to be spending money on. It's a sinkhole at that point.
Now, with that said, if you are an enterprise and you really can't move off Windows 7, Microsoft is offering paid updates. So enterprises have the option to subscribe to extended service updates, I think, or something along those lines, where you pay a fee. I'm assuming it's relatively expensive since it's a business thing. And Microsoft will continue updating Windows 7 with security updates. This isn't for consumers. I do not think consumers can buy this for themselves, for their own PCs. Although I believe there is a tool out there now which can sort of just hack your registry just to enable those updates anyway. Don't do that. Just upgrade to Windows 10. Seriously, stop hanging on to Windows 7. You've got to get over it. It's over.
Yeah. It's a weird thing. But it's happening. It's going to come to an end. And
it's just like Windows XP. I remember exactly the same story with Windows XP. People were like, oh my God, there's so many people still using Windows XP. It's never going to go away. And to be fair, Microsoft did have to release out-of-band security updates every now and then for Windows XP when the big ones hit. Like, I can't remember the name of it now, but there was that huge malware that took over a whole bunch of Windows XP systems after it was out of support. So they released an update to Windows XP to patch and fix that vulnerability. I assume the same might happen with Windows 7 once or twice, but in 2 to 4 years, we won't be talking about this anymore.
Yep.
I say as we're wearing Windows XP sweaters.
Yeah, we got to celebrate it. Yeah, well, it is kind of funny. But yeah, that pop-up, it's just a one-time pop-up apparently. So I know people love pop-ups. Actually, what they really do, they love complaining about pop-ups.
Yeah.
But it's just, listen, they want to get people off of this. But you can dismiss it, tell me, never remind me again, and let the chips fall where they may, and you'll run Windows 7 until your hardware, your spinning, your what is definitely a spinning hard disk stops working because you're probably not running an SSD because those things cost thousands of dollars back then. Even if they were, I don't know when SSDs started even coming into laptops, but I remember
2012, I think, was like when it really started happening.
Yeah, that's probably a good point. And even then, it was only the premium stuff. I still remember getting laptops and with spinning hard disks.
Oh,
They would
yeah.
have these. They'd have. I think Lenovo had a thing where it was an accelerometer built into the laptop. So if it detected it falling,
It stopped spinning.
it would stop lock the hard disk drive to like brace itself. So because they were so delicate,
Yeah.
it's just funny like how horrible spinning hard disks were,
Yeah.
and yet we were so like, is that a 5400? Nah, 7200 RPM.
Yeah.
Woo! All right. Wow, that thing is lightning. Um, I'm so glad hard disks
Thank God for solid state.
Yes, solid state is pretty amazing. Anyway, so that's the Windows 7 news, and that's the Windows 7 EOL pop-up news, and the latest insider update.
Yeah, we did
news.
2 in 1. Look at that.
Yeah, we're blasting through this podcast 20 minutes in. All right, let's talk about the big news, the exciting stuff. Well, let's save the exciting stuff for last, the Xbox. Sorry. But let's go through the Surface Hub 2X stuff quickly. So we know Surface Hub 2X is coming out.
Yeah.
So explain. There's 2X, there's 2S. What's the difference?
Sure.
What's the timeline for them? And why is this interesting?
So I wrote an article this week talking a bit about the 2X because I've been wondering where it is. We haven't seen the thing in over a year. Now, this is significant because when the Surface Hub 2 was first announced, it was announced as a single product. It wasn't the 2S or the 2X. When they unveiled it in May 2018, it was Surface Hub 2. And the product they showcased was the 2X variant. Because at that point, they didn't think they were going to need to do a 2S. The Surface Hub 2 was going to be this brand new device running a brand new version of Windows built on top of Windows Core OS, the same version of Windows 10 that's Windows 10X is built on, with a fluid user interface, dynamic rotation, tilings features, all sorts of things that Windows Core can enable with its adaptive shell built on C shell and whatnot. But then they announced later in 2018 that they were doing 2 SKUs, the 2S and the 2X. The 2S being the Surface Hub 2, but without the Windows Core OS part. So it's shipping with the old Surface Hub OS, which is kind of boring and whatnot, very static, but it does the job. And a lot of companies apparently were asking Microsoft for this product, so they obliged, and that's what has been released so far. So if you see a Surface Hub 2 in the wild today, it's a Surface Hub 2S. Now, Press got the chance to go hands-on with the 2X at Ignite 2018, and that's the one and only time anybody outside of Microsoft has had the chance to play with a 2X, because in every case where Microsoft has been talking about the Surface Hub 2 since, it's always been the 2S. The 2X hasn't been anywhere to be seen. Microsoft hasn't talked about it. They've not really said anything on the matter. So I started wondering, is there a problem with the 2X? Is it not coming now or something? So I started digging around with sources a few months back. I started hearing some interesting things. And basically what I'm hearing is the Surface Hub 2X, the version of Windows they were building for it, codenamed Aruba, is dead. So that variant of Windows Core OS is no more, which was very interesting to me, because what makes the 2X is the software components built on Windows Core OS. Aruba is the reason why there is a 2X to begin with. So does that mean the 2X is dead? Apparently not. What Microsoft is planning to do here with the 2X is to ship it with Windows 10X, or a version of Windows 10X. I don't know if they'll call it Windows 10X, because for some reason Microsoft is very adamant that 10X is for dual screen foldables only. But it will be the Santorini shell experience. Santorini is the codename for the Windows 10X user experience. So that's what will ship on the Surface Hub 2X. I assume in 2020. I don't know if this means the OS change means it's going to be delayed even further. I doubt it, because Windows 10X itself is expected to be done in June 2020. So the Hub 2X could launch anytime after that. But that's just a little update on the 2X, because I know a few people were asking me where that was and whatnot. It's very interesting, I think. Windows Core OS started out as a version, like a modular OS that had many different faces on top of it. It had Polaris, which was a desktop variant of Windows Core OS. It had Andromeda OS, which was a mobile variant of Windows Core OS. Then it had 10X, which sort of got rid of Polaris and Andromeda. It had Aruba, which was for collaborative displays. Now that's gone. The only ones that have survived is Oasis, which is the version of Windows Core that ships on HoloLens 2, and Windows 10X, which is very surprising to me. And I guess GameCore, which is what runs on the next Xbox.
You think it was just too much? They were like, "What are we doing? This is way too much stuff."
I have a feeling that they just, because if you've ever seen Aruba, because they showed it off in 2018, it looks kind of similar to Windows 10X anyway. I'm assuming they figured that the UX is almost the same. We might as well just maintain one shell rather than maintain two shells for this. So they condensed the two.
So the whole multi-shell thing is just gone. Or
well, I mean, so I think. It's difficult to say, really. I think it depends on the form factor, right? Because HoloLens 2 uses an entirely different shell. Although they all use C shell, which is the same shell. It's a universal shell. But obviously Oasis is a different configuration of that shell because it's a holographic platform. It wouldn't make sense to have a taskbar and a start menu, stuff like that traditionally. But since Aruba was basically just a desktop but on a big screen, it's like, well, why do we need a different shell for that? Why don't we just make it the Windows 10X shell, because that runs on desktops anyway. So
someone's asking if did this all happen when Azure took over the Windows division?
I don't think so. I think it literally just they were building Aruba separately and was like, well, we're doing the same thing twice. Let's just do it once with the single shell experience. And it works because since it is C shell, on the Surface Hub 2X, it won't be running any of the additional stuff that dual screens need, and vice versa. The dual screen devices won't be running any of the additional stuff that the Hub 2X needs. That's how the modular platform and shell experience works. So although it is the same shell, different things are on and off depending on the form factor and so on and so forth. So yeah, I think this is good news for most people. This won't matter to anyone listening here because none of you are buying a 2X. But this is for people who are just interested in the updates on Windows Core OS and whatnot.
I also imagine during development, they come across things and figure ways to combine things. And they're definitely program managers looking to sort of streamline things. Exactly. And they have budgets and they're like, because like there's definitely a stage where they're like, this is what we think we should do. And like, all right, get on it. And they start doing it. And then they're like, well, they're kind of doing this idea. And it would be cool if we did. And, plans change a little bit. Mm-hmm. This is, of course, Zach and I have talked about this endlessly, why it's not dangerous, but it's risky reporting on like, here's what Microsoft envisions or what they're working on, because it changes as it goes along. Sometimes it doesn't work out. Sometimes there are budget considerations. Sometimes, there's a bunch of reasons that happen there. I should point out Channel 1 is hosting us right now. So if you guys you want to pivot quickly towards the Xbox news?
Sure. Yeah, I was done with the 2X anyway. So yeah, let's move on.
All right. So last night the Game Awards happened. Game Awards, or Game Awards? Game Awards, right? If you don't know, this is a yearly event. You can think of it literally as the Oscars for gaming industry. It's gotten bigger every year to reflect the growing influence of the gaming industry. It's almost approaching like Oscar level now, and it's and there's a ton of money in gaming, right? And a lot of studios involved here, and there's now talent being recognized. I still, it's underappreciated, the voice acting that goes into video games, how crucial that is. It's actually really hard. As someone who occasionally has to read scripts and record himself, it's actually kind of hard to do that. It's like, I know it sounds dumb. It's just like, it's just reading out loud. Mm-hmm. And it's like, no, and plus they have to emote and all that. Then you have the writers who need to write witty dialogue, right? That makes a story compelling. And you have the game directors who oversee everything. So it's nice to see the industry kind of come together and be able to celebrate that and give those people, recognition. Because often you just see a video game, it's just like the cover art, and you're like, oh, and the studio name. And sometimes now the head of the studio, because they'll say something stupid on Twitter, and they'll have to push back like an hour, a day later. But it's nice to see the regular working people behind these studios. I also like someone who follows the stuff, but not religiously. It's like, that industry looks really rough. It looks like a tough industry because you see these studios, they come out with like an awesome, amazing game. They're riding the wave. And then like next year they release a game, it doesn't do well. Then like 6 months later, it's like they just laid off after staff. The churn in the industry just seems massive. And those people who work on these titles, it's not like a 9 to 5, 40-hour work week for them. They're often doing 80 hours. And, it's an industry built on passion, not just Yeah, I'm sure this, yeah, I'm sure at EA there are definitely marketing people and bean counters, but the people who are actually doing the work there. But the reason why we want to talk about it is because the Microsoft team was there and Xbox was there, and instead of announcing the new Xbox at E3, which is tradition, it's what it's expected, it's what we were banking on, they announced the new Xbox, aka Project Scarlet, last night, including the name,
Hmm.
which was a big deal. And they ran a whole video and showed off the hardware itself. Zach, why don't you walk us through the name and
Yes, so the name is Xbox Series X, which
or
is
Xbox Sex as
oh, yeah, that too. So here's the thing: it's a stupid name. Let's all get over it and move on.
yeah.
This is it because a lot of people are
But
like, "This name's dumb."
explain why it's called Series
So,
X.
so the rumor is that there's more than just one console coming with the Scarlet. Scarlet has always internally been referred to as a family of devices, and so far we know of two consoles, codenamed Anaconda and Lockhart. The product they announced yesterday, known as the Series X, and the box they showed, is Anaconda, which is the more powerful of the two. Lockhart is rumored to be the sort of cheaper, less powerful version, which will be sort of less powerful than a One X, an Xbox One X, but more powerful than an Xbox One S. So yeah, that's why it's called Series, because I'm assuming Microsoft is planning to unveil multiple consoles, multiple devices with this next generation of hardware. But talking about the box itself, the box is very interesting in its design. It looks kind of like a mini tower PC. It's square but tall. And that's very, very weird. So it's a horizontally designed console rather than vertically. Most consoles are designed vertically that can stand horizontally. This is the other way. It's designed horizontally that can lay down it's designed vertically that can lay down horizontally if you want to. But because of its design, it's actually much taller when it's horizontal than other consoles. In that a lot of people may not be able to fit this under their TV cabinet. I'm one of those people. I'm not going to be able to fit it under there unless I cut the shelf out or something. So that's going to
I
be
don't
really
even have a shelf for
interesting.
one of my TVs. My TV, I have one TV that's just mounted on the wall, and the cables run behind the wall. So
Yeah.
and I actually used a thing called Hide It, which mounts the Xbox behind the TV. It's really
Mhm.
wild. So it's all just super clean
Yeah.
looking. Yeah, I have no idea what I do
So
with
they've not told us any specific measurements, but people have sort of tried to figure it out based on other elements in the images they've revealed, such as the USB ports or the disc tray. And people are estimating it to be around 30 centimeters tall and around 16 centimeters thick. So yeah, it's a big boy, but that's because it has lots of power, and it has 12 teraflops of power. It's still got a disc tray, which is crazy to me in 2020. But hey, there you go, gamers love it. And all sorts of other things that I don't remember off the top of my head. They haven't revealed the full specs yet, I don't think, because they still want to keep that close to their chest, since Sony hasn't announced anything on their side. Sony still hasn't even shown off the console. They've announced that they're doing a
yeah.
PS5, but they've not
And,
shown off.
the dev kit photos have leaked
Yeah,
out,
that's
which
true.
aren't reflective of anything.
Right, it doesn't matter because the dev kits are usually way more specced out than the retail kits anyway.
Yeah, and they're meant to be like stacked and stuff like
Yeah.
that for developers. Um, yeah, for me, I'm again easygoing Dan. The name, I don't care. But yeah, as you mentioned, it allows them to have flexibility. We are expecting a
Yeah.
cheaper version. I think it would be smart if they announce the pricing and availability of this one version. It goes on sale, and then we wait a year for the next holiday season. They go like, boom, now we have a cheaper version.
So
That's
there's a problem with that though, and it's that I have a feeling Anaconda's going to be quite expensive, and I have a feeling Sony wants to undercut Microsoft again, and if they do
okay.
that, then it's going to be game over for Xbox once again. So I have a feeling it makes sense to announce a Lockhart at E3 or maybe at some point in the spring 2020. But hey, so by the way, there is going to be a cheaper version, and then just announce both prices together. So that way gamers don't instantly freak out over at the $499 price tag of Anaconda, because there's no way the console they've announced so far is going to be less than $499. If it is, I will I will be
Eat
impressed.
this sweater.
Yes, seriously, I'll be very, very impressed. That's the
Yeah,
whole reason Lockhart exists, though, right? Because they are trying to push the boat out, but they know gamers are very averse to super high price tags. So they're like, well, if you don't want to pay that much, we have a version of this console that's way cheaper. It's less powerful, but that's the price you pay, right? You're paying for power. If you don't want to pay that much, then you get less power, and that's what Lockhart is. And I have a feeling Lockhart as well will be much more traditionally designed for a console, so it does fit under people's TV sets and stuff. Like, it looks like the Xbox Series X is being built like for gamers, for people like PC gamers or like hardcore gamers who are like, I want to shell out for the best and I don't care. I'm like a stereotypical gamer. I want it to look like a gaming thing. Cool. But then there's quite a few casual Xbox gamers who just want a console to play games every now and then, and that's what Lockhart will be. That's what I'm thinking anyway.
Side note, I'm just laughing because on our Mixer channel right now, every time people mention sex as an Xbox sex, the bot is automatically removing their messages, and no one can see it in the room. So if you're wondering why I said LOL Mixer bot, I can see the messages that have been deleted. So, but yeah, people, don't write it as Microsoft or Xbox sex or
just call
whatever.
It Series X as it's intended.
Series X, yeah, just call it Series X. Otherwise, Mixer won't allow you to say these things because we're a family-friendly channel. Yeah, that's a good point. I mean, I guess it really does depend on what the actual cost of the main device is. Because, and what Microsoft could absolutely be doing here is like, we don't know about a second cheaper version. Maybe not. We have the door open. Meanwhile, they really are planning it. And what's going to happen is either at E3, or even as late, probably E3 would make sense. If Sony comes out like, here's our thing, and here's the price, and it's like cheap, and then Microsoft's like, here's ours, it's like $200 more. Oh darn! Oh wait, look at this, we have a cheaper version too. That's so that would be, and they may want to say that as like a little mic drop moment, and that's why they're being kind of coy. I could totally see that happening as well. So that'll definitely be interesting. The design itself, I don't love the design, but I don't like hate it enough either. The design is very functional and pragmatic. Like, they didn't design it like that because like, this looks awesome. I think they designed it like that because they're like, this makes the most sense for ventilation. Heat rises. Let's make it a big, basically, chamber. I mean, Apple had this similar idea too, though, with their Mac Pro that came out a few years ago to look like a trash can. But I would say the Mac Pro mostly failed because it wasn't upgradable where it should have been upgradable. Like, I think it was hard to replace the GPUs and parts in it, which made it less attractive to people. I don't think people actually hated its design so much as it wasn't as functional. Whereas the new one is a straight up box PC, right? It's the same tower. You just swap out components.
Right. So real quick regarding games, because this is a next gen console, we're expecting the same sort of thing to happen that the last gen did. So game developers will build games that run on the last gen and the next gen for a couple of years, and then slowly but surely the one games will sort of fade out and they'll be Scarlet only, similar to how when the Xbox One launched there were developers building games for the Xbox 360 and Xbox One, but over time those developers stopped building versions for the 360 and just focused on the One. We're expecting the same to happen with Scarlet, but Scarlet is backwards compatible, so any game that runs on the Xbox One today, including 360 and original games, will work on Scarlet. So you won't be starting a brand new games library like you did with the Xbox One. Everything that you have today will carry over and continue working, including accessories. So your current Xbox One controller, your Xbox Elite controller, or any other accessory, third-party accessory you've bought for the Xbox One will function on Xbox Series X. And that's a big deal as well. So it's like, although it is a new generation, it's like,
and they do have a new controller, though.
They do have a new controller, yeah. So the new controller has a share button in the middle, which is nice because obviously Kinect's gone and you can't shout at it to share things anymore.
That makes sense because I find sharing still like, I mean, if you do it all the time, it's muscle memory. But for those of us who don't game all the time, and I forget something. What is it? You have to double press the Xbox button, or you gotta do something.
Weird. Yeah, it is weird. Yeah. They've also got a new D-pad, which is essentially the same D-pad you can find on the Elite Series 2 controller. Just now on the standard controller for Xbox Series X, which is nice. And it's also slightly, like, the shape is slightly different. Apparently it's a bit smaller than the current one, but that's because apparently they did research on this, and internally they found that the current Xbox One controller fits 95% of people's hands. this new controller fits 98%. So that's why it's smaller.
Or the real takeaway is because of their labs where they do all this testing is humans are shrinking.
Right, that could also be the reason.
So we just don't know. That could be a bigger problem. We'll have to investigate.
We also haven't seen the back of the box, so we don't know what ports are there, including whether or not there's a HDMI pass-through. I've asked around about this, and while I've heard
from other sources too that it has no HDMI pass-through.
It has no HDMI pass-through, which would suggest that the whole Xbox One as a TV is dead.
So, but even forget that. Like, if I want to run it through my audio system, how does that work? Aren't I running it through my audio system already? Like,
it'll still have a HDMI input.
All right. So, okay.
Yeah.
Wait.
So the current Xbox One has two HDMI ports. It has HDMI in, which is from your TV to the console, and that's what, or is that HDMI out? I can't remember. Either way, one of them does to your TV. The other one does from your cable box to the Xbox. That one, the cable box to the Xbox HDMI port, is going away. Well, we don't know that for sure, but that's what we've heard from sources, that that's possibly not going to be there, which means you won't be able to use the Series X as a TV box as you could with the Xbox One. That's a shame for me because I've actually set up my entire living room experience around the Xbox One, so that going away means I'm going to have to figure out an alternative solution for that. But
keep both and use one for TV.
Yes, and keep both, yeah.
Just switch your HDMI inputs. Yeah, every time I still got to review the sound system I have because it's a really nice one. It's a 7.1 and it does like all the cool stuff. That's as much technical stuff I'll drop right now. It's been a while since I looked at it. I think it's an Odyssey, but it's every time I have to go rewire it, my brain, it's like that that meme with the doing the long division in the head. It's like, all right, which plug does what? Yeah. It's kind of interesting stuff. Someone's asking same thing with will it have Type C? We don't know. I wouldn't be surprised if it has
maybe
Type
one.
C. Yeah, one. Yeah, because there's not a lot of peripherals that you plug in right now that are Type C.
Yeah, you're right. It is still USB-A for charging a controller.
Yeah, like what are people using USB-A for on these things? A lot of times it's a thumb drive. Those are mostly Type A still. Sometimes they're external drives, again, Type A, although you can do a Type C one. I don't know. It'll be interesting to see. There's also this idea, people brought up that the new Xbox is much more like a PC, although if you go back to 2013, they were saying the same thing about the Xbox One back then. But what I would say is the dev story around this stuff has definitely changed. So, it is more like a PC in the sense of the software it's running and the games it can run aren't specific to it. Microsoft has really gotten away from this idea of generations in consoles, in the sense that the generations break compatibility in the past and your old games don't work. This is very much like this is how a PC model works, which is NVIDIA comes out with a new, GeForce card, a new RTX card. And it's like, cool, does it break all my games? Nope. All your old games will totally run on it. They'll just run faster, and there'll be new features that will, and that's where I would say this as a PC, that model kind of comes in.
Yeah, so on the software side of that, you mentioned it being like a PC. Microsoft has said things like, so you can resume multiple things at once, so you'll have 3 or 4 games running at the same time, not on the screen at the same time, but you can switch between them through the dash, and they should instantly load up and be there rather than having the operating system unload one whilst you load another. They should all continue running, which is very interesting. Also, no load times or reduced load times in the sense that some games now are almost instant when you boot them up because thanks to OS enhancements and also the SSDs that are now in the Series X, they're no longer using spinning disks, which is fantastic. There's a lot. Seriously, it even looks like a PC, right? It's funny because I wrote when they announced Scorpio, which was Xbox One X. I wrote a thing was saying, this could be like a PC, and now this really is like a PC. They could even go so far because since Series X is a Windows Core OS device of sorts, running C Shell, they could have like a continuum mode for gaming where if you plug a mouse and keyboard into it, it has a dashboard UX that's much more similar to Windows Desktop, where it has like a launcher menu for games and stuff rather than using a controller UI. That would be really cool if they actually ship that. And I'm not talking like hypothetical. That is something that internally they have, what's the word I'm looking for? They've conceptualized and thought about. Whether they ship it or not is another story, of course. But Yeah, that would be really, really cool. And that would, I think, seal the deal for a lot of streamers as well who do have all of their consoles on their desk where they stream, for example. The Xbox Series X can sit there. They can just have a mouse and keyboard plugged into it and have a UI that's similar to a PC, but just with games. And that would be really, really cool.
Everybody's going nuts with all the GIFs, however you want to pronounce them, in our mixer room. Thank you guys. It's always fun to watch those things happen. It's an exciting time for this stuff. Let's talk about some of the games quickly. In the capabilities, it can technically do 8K gaming in some situations.
Is it? So I have a question about this. Is it 8K gaming or 8K video? Because the One S can do 4K, but it's not 4K gaming. It's 4K video.
No, I think it's 8K gaming.
That's impressive. Wow.
But it's only going to be it's sort of like how the Xbox One X now can do 4K at 60 frames, but that's not an automatic. You have to really optimize your game to achieve that. So if you lower down the specs, I imagine this would be more like platformers or sort of RTS type games where it's where you could do, or video. Yeah, you could do the 8K stuff. It'd probably be 30 frames per second. Just so that's not going to be an actual. I think that'd be the exception, is what I'm trying to say. Mm-hmm. But 4K 60 will now become that'll be the default norm. There should be no reason why any game should not hit 4K 60.
Unless
they can do 4K 120 apparently now too.
I'm guessing Lockhart will be the exception to that. Lockhart will probably be 2K.
Right. Yeah. None of this will apply to the cheaper model. This is all the high end one. Yeah. So, and we did see the trailer for Hellblade 2. I still haven't played the first one. It's on my to-do list because it's on Game Pass, I believe now. Ever since Microsoft bought Ninja Theory, the company behind it. This game got a lot of coverage when it came out. It was a real sneaker of a hit. The motion capture technology they used for it is pretty amazing. The girl that stars in it is also the editor, I think, of the game. It's really just this crazy story. And this trailer, if you haven't seen it yet, go watch Hellblade 2 trailer. It's absolutely bonkers. Everybody agrees on it. It's that was the most wild trailer they've ever seen. It's very primal, and the game just looks absolutely outstanding. And I almost feel like that game could be one of the flagship titles. I mean, it kind of is a flagship title. I don't want to say it isn't, but a lot of people criticize Xbox for not having the exclusives or that must-have game. And man, I tell you, Hellblade 2 is looking like it could be one of those games for a lot of people. Mm-hmm. There's also Gears Tactics. I think that's the name of it. It's the Gears of War RTS game that was shown off, which also looks very cool. It's a one-player game. No microtransactions, no nonsense. It's straight up RTS, like XCOM type game, and that looks really nice too. So obviously we'll get more, but I'm happy with Ninja Theory. I'm glad that's paying off for them. I was actually really excited that Microsoft picked up that studio because they were small, but they have a lot of ideas and really talented people, and it looks like they're making use of that. So that's kind of cool.
Yeah, the actual video for the Xbox Series X, the unveiling video, was really cool as well. It had awesome narration, and also they had brief CGI sort of clips of Forza, I think it was, Halo, and I guess FIFA. There was a football game in there, or soccer game, which FIFA was a weird choice to me. That should have been Gears easily, but oh well. And
it was narrated by Alan Watts, who's dead. But if you don't know who Alan Watts is, go look him up. I went through a period of my life where I discovered him, and he's kind of like a philosopher. He's very much in a Eastern tradition of philosophy, Taoism, and a little bit of Buddhism and stuff like that. Mm-hmm. And he helped popularize that in Western culture. It was prominent during I believe the 1970s. And I have a bunch of his stuff recorded, and I used to just listen to it all the time. And it's really for Westerners, I feel like they should really listen to Alan Watts. It really helps you kind of understand, I don't know, it reorientates you in life. It was a little weird to hear him being used in a capitalist consumer marketing video. I'm not sure he would have approved of that usage. That said, the theme of it was about how it's an interesting thing. I mean, Xbox, there's two ways of viewing gaming consoles, right? There's the whole you're wasting your life sitting on a couch, mindlessly playing a game. Although gamers would obviously disagree with that, saying it's I mean, there's a lot of benefits to gaming, including enhancing neural bit abilities, problem solving, all that. Plus, it is just escapism, which is fine. But then there's also the people who create all the games, like what we were just talking about with the. And I feel like it almost played into that a little bit last night because the main audience that was in attendance last night were all the creators of this stuff. And the only reason they can create all this technology and these games and these stories and tell these things and is because companies like Microsoft go out and create the hardware to enable the experience, right? So they can build for that experience. And the theme of Alan Watts was talking about was unlocking your dreams and all this kind of stuff. And if you think about it from that perspective, these are tools that creators get to use to create these really crazy experiences. I mean, when I grew up, I had Nintendo and a ColecoVision. There wasn't much story to these games. They were just side scrollers. But now if you look at something like Hellblade 2, it's just like really, really in-depth story that like really, affects people deeply when they play the game. So there is that. So, but just go check out the trailer. It's kind of cool. And like I said, Alan Watts, I recommend. That's a little Dan preachy thing. Go download his stuff and listen to him. It's very peaceful. You'll come away from life with a much better, I think, perspective on things.
Regarding launch games, so far I think the only one we know that's confirmed is Halo Infinite. Halo Infinite will be a Scarlet-built game that will also work on the One, of course, but it will be best played on Xbox Series X. The name baffles me for multiple reasons. Like, is it Xbox Series? Is Series the name of the generation, or is X the name of the generation, and Series being just the identifier that there's multiple of them? Like, that's
don't know.
I don't know, right? It's such a weird name. Like, also, obviously, it being a series means they could be more than just Lockhart as well. They could. I would like to see them build a handheld console to go up against the Nintendo Switch, an Xbox handheld of sorts that could be powered by xCloud or something. Would be really cool, and I would buy that in a heartbeat. But yeah, like there's room for opportunity here with the Xbox Series branding that I don't think many people have sort of understood just yet. And I assume this is why Microsoft chose it, so they have the room to expand and be like, oh, by the way, here's an Xbox stick, like the Fire Stick. Now you can use it to run YouTube and Netflix and see and play lightweight games or something. I don't know, but yeah, that's going to be super cool. Microsoft is suddenly obsessed with the letter X. Have you noticed? Like,
they're not suddenly. I wouldn't say that. I tweeted that out last night. Well, someone else had tweeted it out, and I just retweeted it. I called it Microsoft History X, which was a play on the movie American History X. Great movie, disturbing movie, but it's still a great movie. But yeah, let's see. It goes back to 1995 with DirectX. 96 was ActiveX. 2001 was Xbox Original. 2002 XAct, that's an audio API. 2005 X Input, another API. 2005 Xbox 360. 2013 Xbox One. Look at that gap.
That's a long gap where there's no X's.
That was a long gap for Xbox consoles. It goes to show you just how rapidly this stuff changes now. They're like smartphones. 2014 Zim, that was another app. 2017 there was Mixer. I did forget about Mixer. Mixer technically does have an X in that.
Oh, that doesn't count.
I think it does. I actually think it does now. It's right in the middle. It actually makes kind of sense. And now you have Xbox One X, xCloud, Surface Pro X, Xbox Series X, and of course Windows 10X.
Well, the X's definitely started leaking into other product lines.
Yeah. and then you have Frank X. Shaw, the lead PR.
Well, because I was trying to make sense of like the usage of X. Now, I'm not including Xbox here because the X in Xbox stands for DirectX. That's just the technology used to build the games. That's fine. That makes sense. Except with the One X, X was, I think Phil Spencer said it was like X is because it's the best or something. But then Microsoft using X elsewhere doesn't mean the same thing. So for Windows 10X, it's inspirational. Like, oh, this is like a variation of, this is the future. This is X. Surface Pro X sort of falls under that same umbrella, but it's not Windows 10X. It's a whole different thing. It's like, oh, this is the Surface Pro of the future X. It's like, okay, but the Series X isn't. The Series X is the next thing. That's just the next variation of Xbox. So I don't know. Microsoft the X is all over the place in my mind.
Yeah, I mean, and companies go through this. Apple went through the I phase. Remember, everything had an I in front of it, and how stupid it was, and how funny. I mean, we have our sister site named iMore. Like, it became like iMessage, iPhone, iPad, iPod. Everything was turning into I, and now Apple's moved away from that. Right now, it's not an Apple iWatch. That's kind of surprising. It's just Apple Watch. But their new thing that they're on now is Plus. You put a plus after it. It's
Oh,
like
Max.
yeah, yeah. Well, it's like if you want to charge for a service, you just put a plus at the end of it. That's it. Now
Yeah.
that's the paid version.
Hmm.
So they're doing that with Apple TV. It's Apple TV or Apple TV Plus.
Yeah.
There's the Apple News Plus, right? So all companies always go through these periods and focus on something different. I don't care. I mean, as a lot of people pointed out, are you buying this to play the name or are you buying it to play the games, right? Ultimately, you're going to buy. It's just a thing to get you there. I also would like to meet the person who was in the store and it was like, to the left was a PlayStation, to the right was an Xbox, and they just go back and forth, and they're like, X is stupid, and they buy a PlayStation based solely on the name not being cool enough for them. Like, I imagine there's maybe just one person who did that.
Yeah, well, it's funny because X is a cool letter. It's arguably the coolest letter in the alphabet.
I don't disagree. It's only
X.
followed by Z.
Yeah,
Z
right,
is pretty
Z.
cool.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah.
But
Yeah,
yeah,
yeah.
yeah. No, see, I guess the next generation will be Xbox Z. Oh, I'd so buy that.
That would be, that would be kind of cool. Yeah, and yeah, a lot of people didn't like Xbox One either. I mean, this is what
Yeah.
Zach and I have talked about this endlessly on every podcast where there's a new product announced, where just people wring their hands over the name, and then like 6 months later, everybody's over it. I mean, because ultimately it's about the product. Is the product good? Because if the product is really good, it's going to like absolutely destroy the idea that name's bad. I mean, case in point, 100% was iPad. When iPad came
Yeah,
out,
that's fantastic. That's great.
everybody ripped on that name.
Yeah.
Everybody.
It was a tough
Like,
name though.
it was a tough name. And the product itself didn't look that great.
No.
All it was a blown up iPhone without the phone part. And it was like, so you have a blown up phone and the fact it has a stupid name. And how did iPad fare? It did all right. So and Zune, I would argue, kind of had a cool name. It was a weird name though. Maybe that's where Z's don't work. But the feature set, as much as it was good, wasn't strong enough to necessarily differentiate itself. And then there was things like squirting, which definitely that's a real thing. Look it up. Zune and squirting. It was
Oh dear.
yeah, that was a bad one. That's
Yeah.
can't let that off the hook.
Good names though were the Lumia
And
firmware updates. They had some excellent names.
I
Bit of
also say it
sweet
wasn't
shimmer.
smart to ship Zune in a brown color.
No, yeah, that too. Yeah, Microsoft has made some missteps in the years. I don't know if you've noticed.
Yeah. Yeah, they should have had Windows Phone X.
Yes, that's what they should call the version of Android on the Surface Duo. Windows Phone X, just to
There you
confuse everyone.
Yeah, just to confuse everybody. Yeah. Oh well. It's good. Gaming's gonna be very exciting between that and oh yeah, we forgot to mention X Cloud. Let's see, another X. X's are everywhere.
So much X.
Well, it does raise the question, right? Would they do a Surface Laptop X or a Surface Book X?
I mean, yeah, why not, right? Because all for the Surface line at least, all X needs to be is this is something we want to do, but we don't want to replace the main one yet. That's what X means for Surface. It's like here's a Surface laptop that has all these weird stuff that we don't want to replace the main line Surface laptop with.
I'd also say, yeah, that's true. I would say like a company like Qualcomm, the X stands for extreme. Literally, that's what
Extreme.
Well, I mean, because they now have the Snapdragon 7C and 8C, which were announced last week. We talked about that last week's podcast. Those are the entry-level, mid-tier ARM processors for PC. And then we already had the 8CX, and the X there does stand for extreme. That's supposed to be the real high-end version, you can argue. It's extreme for them, folks, all right? I know it's not a Core i9, but for ARM, it's extreme. It is what it is.
I do wonder as well, since it is called Series X, I do wonder if the Xbox One X itself will be grandfathered into this new generation. Because with Lockhart being less powerful than the One X, in theory, the One X should still be able to run all the games that are built for Scarlet, even in like 5 or 6 years. So I will be interested to see how Microsoft treats the One X going forward. But yeah, that's something to watch out for. I wouldn't be surprised if the One X follows this generation and sort of gets grandfathered in as a console that can run Scarlet games. which would be cool, but I don't think they'll announce that right away. Because why would you buy a Series X? You just wouldn't. Do
Everybody's chiming in, and these do work. First of all, we should rename the site to Windows Central X.
Oh yeah, I'm gonna register the domain right now.
Instead of OneNote, Xnote.
Yep,
it does sound cooler.
It does sound cooler.
Instead of OneDrive, X Drive.
I'm there.
It does sound cooler.
Instead of Windows, just X. X10X.
WinX.
I'm there for WinX too. I love it. I just put Micro X.
Micro. Yeah, rename the company Micro X.
Oh dear.
Or just X.
Just X. Just everything is X at Microsoft. Oh, have you seen the new X? Oh, it's really cool. Yeah. Oh, the X. Oh, yeah. No, I'm there.
And for people making fun of the whole like Microsoft and sex thing, the Microsoft Xbox Series X, Xbox X, I should point out, I mean, that's exactly what Tesla's been doing the whole time.
Yeah, but they're doing it on purpose.
I know they are.
For Microsoft, it's unintentional. They just I didn't notice that. But it's Elon Musk going, I want to make a line of cars that spells sexy.
And if you don't know the joke, so they released, it was first the Model S, or was it first or Model Y?
No,
I've got the
order.
The Model X. The Model X was that was the doors that flip up. Then there's the Model S. That was the large sedan. And then there was the What was originally the Model E, that then changed it to Model 3. Mm-hmm. But if you look at it in the logo, it's basically an E. It's the same three dashes. And now they announced the Model Y. And yeah, they all spell sexy. And that was totally done on purpose because Elon is, whatever, it's his company.
Child.
It works. Like, I mean, I'm not going to tell him how to do things. I thought it's funny. I don't know. People need to have a sense of humor about this
stuff.
Yeah,
I think it's hilarious. Like with Office, you can do the same thing. If you arrange all the icons in Office, you can spell sexy as well, I think. So
in Office?
Yeah, you can do it in Office. I believe you can. Yeah, you've got SharePoint, you've got Excel. Oh no, Excel's an X. Although that goes. Yeah, and then you've got Exchange. No, maybe I don't think there's an E. Maybe they're missing the E.
Well, you just said Exchange.
But, yeah, well, is that maybe? I don't know. Yeah, but you can do it. You can do it in Office. I'm sure you can.
Interesting. Yeah, there's also SpaceX. Yeah, another X. Yeah, everybody's doing X's, man. It's what the hip kids are doing.
iPhone X, which
RMB Daniel X Rubino. Zach X Bowden. That would actually that works kind of well.
Zach
you ever got to Z?
Bowden. Yeah, I'm there.
Zach X. Oh well. I think we're gonna wrap up the podcast. I think we're kind of done. I just will tease. Oh, exactly 1 hour too. I just want to tease a little bit. I am CES is coming up. That's the big thing. Beginning of January, right after you guys are recovering from New Year's. I got to fly to Vegas, which I know many of you are like, "You lucky." Like,
no,
you're gonna hear a lot. I won't be that guy on Twitter complaining about going to Vegas because that's really annoying too. I have to admit, but a lot of people in this industry don't quite love going to Vegas every year. But especially because it's right after, like you have like 3 days after the New Year's and you have to go. But yeah, CES is coming up. I'm getting a lot of previews right now of what's going to be announced, which is really cool. So stay tuned. A lot of PC and laptop announcements, stuff probably from Intel and NVIDIA too. So if you follow, it's kind of funny because CES used to be all about smartphones. And for a few years there, I didn't have much to talk about because Windows Phone was like after 2015 was pretty blah. So I didn't have much to do at CES. I think I'd even go in 2015 or 2016. But now it's the opposite. Everybody's doing phone announcements on their own at later events, but there's a lot of, because the laptop is not dead, it's doing quite well. There's a lot of PC announcements going on, and I actually have one downstairs that's going to be announced at the beginning of January. I'm very excited to try out. So there's going to be all sorts of cool news coming out there. I think you guys will be impressed, so stay tuned for that. Oh, and Dell's got some cool stuff.
You can't talk about
that's all I can say. That's all I can say. But
I thought you was about to spill the beans. Like, no, Dan, shush.
Technically, I didn't sign an NDA because I heard this through someone else because I wasn't at the event because I got snowed in. But yeah, there's cool stuff coming. So, or going to be announced or shown off. Some of it's also just like you know, some of the stuff I'm talking about you can predict. You've seen the trends. Thinner bezels.
Yeah.
It's lighter. It's faster. It's cooler. All good stuff. I also should say I got a pile of laptops. I swear I'm working through these. But these are ones you guys want to check out. The new HP Spectre we finally got. So that's the one. They finally trimmed the bezels by 50%, which is hilarious because HP like for years didn't do anything with their bezels really. They're like, well, we make those side ones thinner, but they kept the top and bottom ones really thick. They chopped those by 50%. So they also finally converted from Synaptics trackpad to Precision after years of me haranguing them. They're doing that across all their consumer devices. So good news for you. So this device fixed the two major things. There's also an option for LTE, which I don't have on this one, but still, they also have the option for OLED. Really great laptop. I think I said it last time, but if you're in the market for a 13-inch convertible 2-in-1 and you have a limited budget and you really just want to stretch that dollar, the Spectre, I can tell you right now, is the best laptop for that. It's the most affordable, and it gives you the most features. They give you a pen and case in the box, and they have a lot of configuration options. I still really like the XPS 13 2-in-1's design overall, plus that aspect ratio, 16:10. But the Spectre is a better bargain, basically. They did a really nice job with it. I also have the Yoga C940 14-inch in, and I'm just starting to play with that. That's a big deal because that was my laptop of the year last year. It was a Yoga C930 back then. This year they didn't radically change it. They made the bezels a little bit thinner, improved the display a little bit, and tweaked it up. I'll have that review hopefully soon as well. I also have what I would call the real Surface Laptop 3 15-inch. It's the one Zach has too.
Welcome to the club.
Yeah, so this is the one with the Intel processor, the Core i7, 16 gigs of RAM, and I'm already loving it.
Do
and
you
plus,
like
I think
it more than the other one?
I also like the color. Honestly, I feel a little biased here. Like if the AMD version had the platinum, I might have been less harsh. But I think the only color is the platinum. That said, if you don't want to wait, I want to plug my friend Brett House at Anantech. He did a write-up today comparing the chipsets. He actually, so I have the Ryzen 5s. I can't directly compare it to Ryzen 5 versus a Core i7. They got, though, the Ryzen 7 and the Core i7, and he does like very meticulous testing, stuff that I'm just on the time, energy, and it's just not worth my effort to recreate what he does. But he went through and did all these benchmarks and battery rundown, and you know the answer to this. The Intel version blows away the AMD one. Now, I think it's still good that Microsoft's using AMD here as a counterbalance, but go check out his numbers. If you're going to buy the Surface Laptop 3 15-inch, I'd say go for the Intel version. I will be doing a separate, smaller review of it, my own experience, going to other things like Instant On and the SSD speeds and everything. But there's that. I have the Dragonfly, HP Dragonfly in now too. That one does have an LTE modem, so I'm playing around with that. And yeah, there's probably a couple other things I have lying around that I have to review. But very exciting laptop time. Oh, was there? Yeah, the Lenovo. There was the Dell XPS 13 regular one with Comet Lake. Yeah, so tons of stuff going on there. Very exciting. It'll get more exciting at CES. Save your pennies. I also have to do a roundup of the best laptops are this year, but I already kind of gave you a hint. I still like Surface Laptop 3 13-inch too. But if you want to save your money and stretch it, go for possibly the HP or the XPS. But there you go. Zach, you have anything to announce or to tease?
Nothing special. I mean, I think there might be some insider stuff next week, which would be quite fun. I'm also doing a write-up on like my predictions for 2020 next week as well, which I guess we'll talk about in the podcast. I think next week's podcast would just be a sort of retrospective of the year plus our predictions for next year, because next week's podcast will be the last one of the year, because we won't be... Oh, that's a lie. It'll be the last live one we do. We have an episode coming on the 27th that was pre-recorded with Jason Howard. I did an interview with him talking about the Windows Insider program and stuff, which is kind of fun. But yeah, next week's episode will be the last live one that we do. So that will be our sort of year review plus what we expect in 2020, which should be fun. Someone's
asking, do you think Duo will be at CES, the Microsoft dual screen Android phone? No, I mean, if it's there, it'll be like in
behind
a case.
The scenes, yeah.
Yeah, or behind the scenes, but they're not going to, I'm not expecting any Microsoft announcements at CES that are significant. There may be some smaller software and services things, but no, I would not expect any hardware stuff. Microsoft famously pulled out of CES years ago to do their own events. They still have a presence off site there. And yeah, I will be going to a showcase event and there'll be some stuff there. So follow me. It's a good way to end up. Follow me on Twitter at Daniel_Rubino, Rubino. You can also follow me on Instagram, because when I am in Vegas, I'll be sharing photos and news there. So follow me on those if you want that. Or if you want to ask me a question. You can also follow Zach at ZACBOWDEN. Same thing. You post a lot of news and sarcastic tweets. And we promise we won't bombard you with random political stuff. Well, I do once in a while. I just can't resist.
I absolutely do not. Even though we had an election this week, I didn't tweet about it once.
You're not like our games editor, Jez Corden.
No, I'm not.
But he is still worth following too. Actually, what is Jez's? It's just Corden.
It's just Jez Corden, yeah.
Yeah, so follow Jez at JEZ, another Z, JEZCORDEN. He's our games editor, and he always he's got the scoop on all the Xbox stuff, so you can follow him. He posts stuff there a lot of times that turns into articles later on. So there you go. We're going to be doing some Q&A now with the audience. If you're listening to this recorded, unfortunately, this is where the podcast ends. Sorry about that, but you can join us every Friday, 2:30 p.m. Eastern time on mixer.com/Windows Central. You can also follow us on YouTube on our Windows Central channel there. And you can ask us questions. Otherwise, you can rewatch us on the mixer.com site and see our funny faces there. As always, thanks for tuning in, and we'll catch you next time. Take care, everyone.
Hooray. So yes, question time. Do you think the Xbox Series X will come with a camera like Kinect? Maybe it could be sold separately. There have been rumors that... Also, he asked you, not me, so I won't answer.
That's fine.
But there have been rumors that there will be a camera accessory. I don't know if it'll be in the box. I doubt it.
Yeah, I doubt that'll be in the box too. That seems like something that would, because that would just drive up the price when they're trying to bring down the price. Yeah, but yeah, there was rumors of a 4K camera, right, for game streaming.
I don't think it'll be at the same level of Kinect where like it can do hand tracking and stuff. But well, I guess we'll see. I don't know.
Yeah, that's one of those things I imagine they'll announce as sort of like, I don't think it'd be like a huge thing on stage, like, and it's got a camera. I think that'll be like, oh, here's some accessories, and it's got this cool camera.
Do you guys think Lockhart will release later on in the generation? Also, any thoughts on if it will have a disc drive? So I don't know. We don't know for sure. But if I had to guess, I think Lockhart and Anaconda will launch at the same time and give buyers a choice of buying the more expensive one or buying the cheaper one. I think it would be a mistake to just release the expensive one first and have everybody who can't afford that go and buy a PS5. I think that would be a mistake on Microsoft's behalf. Do you think it'll have a disc drive? I think Lockhart won't have a disc drive. There's definitely versions of it internally that definitely don't have it, but there are also some internally that do. So it'll be a toss up. But I think it makes sense for it to not have one. But I guess we'll see. What's that tablet behind you? That's not a tablet. That is the Amazon Echo Show. So last week I was testing the Google version of that. I can't remember what it's called now. The Home Hub, the Home Mini. I can't remember what it's called. Now I'm using the Amazon Echo Show, and I kind of like the Google one more. I mean, it's early days still, the Amazon one, but I guess we'll see.
Do you think they'll be raising the price of Xbox Live due to increasing downloadable content? I actually don't.
I don't think so.
So. Because Xbox Live is just for online gaming and chatting. Where they're making up the revenue for increasable download content is through Game Pass, and there are two levels, right? Because there's technically three. There's Game Pass for Xbox, Game Pass for PC, or Game Pass Ultimate, which gives you access to both. And I'm pretty sure that's the revenue model where they're making up for all the downloadable content. You're going to need Xbox Game Pass. I mean, I recommend Xbox Game Pass. It's pretty wild. If you're like me, if you're kind of more of a casual gamer, you just want to try out things instead of buying them. Because the problem with buying a $60 game is you're like, what happens if I don't like it? And you try it and you play it a few times and you don't get into it. It's like, well, goodbye $60.
Yeah.
With Game Pass, it's like you could try it and be like, oh, well, that wasn't that great. So no worries.
Do you think games for Xbox Series X will utilize GameCore to unify developing games for Xbox Series X and PC? Yes. But I will say Microsoft is not requiring game devs to use GameCore on Scarlet. You can build... game developers can still use ERA to build games on an Xbox Series X if they want to, because that's what they're familiar with and stuff. Microsoft isn't going to force game devs to use GameCore, which I think is the smart choice. But yeah, if a developer is utilizing GameCore, they can build that game once, and it should be able to scale across Xbox Series X and PC almost seamlessly. It's UWP, but for game devs. VR in the next gen Xbox? Microsoft has said no. They don't seem to be interested in doing VR for Xbox. Maybe in the future, but not at launch. Someone's asking, does Microsoft have plans for other dual screen for sorry, let me read that again. Does Microsoft have plans other than a dual screen phone for phones? No. As far as we're aware, only the dual screen phone is in development. They are not planning to build a traditional smartphone, because there's no point. Microsoft isn't in the smartphone game. They don't want to compete in the smartphone game. So making a smartphone that just follows all other smartphones makes no sense. The reason Surface Duo exists is because it's different and they can stand out, and it answers like a different market of people. Even though it is a smartphone and it fits in your pocket, general smartphone buyers will not buy the Duo. It's going to be a very niche device, and that's kind of what it's for.
Are you looking forward to Chris Capicella on Windows Weekly next week? Sure. Yeah, Chris is very smiley. He's a very happy person. Yeah, I'm sure he usually does drop some big news on there too. Yeah, like he goes on there. Let's just put it this way. When you talk about Microsoft person of his caliber goes on a podcast, it's not like, sure guys, whatever you want to talk about. Like they're already planning, they have an announcement, and they're going to do it there. And it's all staged and planned out and stuff like that. Because everything is a strategy with them, right? So I'm sure there'll be some small announcement that they'll bring out, and it'll be like
Duo's cancelled.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
Break that news on Windows Weekly.
Do you think Duo will have the Xbox wireless protocol? Duo definitely not.
Yeah, there's no need for it.
Bluetooth is slow for getting headshots. I don't disagree. I mean, we did a whole series recently on Bluetooth and the pros and cons of it. The problem with the wireless protocol is it's not like an algorithm. It's like a physical chip thing that has to go in there. And as someone who's held the Duo, it is ridiculously thin. And we've talked about this before. It has the world's thinnest LCD display already in it. There's no room. I mean, the batteries already got to fit in this thing. There's talk of they may try to put 5G in there. Like, there's just no way they're going to put Xbox wireless unless they can. I don't know. Maybe they can shrink it down. But I've seen it in like desktop PCs. I mean, it's not even really used in laptop PCs, right? So it's like, and part of that is because of space. So I'd be shocked. I'd love for them to find a way to do it. I think that'd be wild. I don't disagree with you, but at this point, no reason to believe it would. I mean, I don't even think Surface Neo will have it. So the only Surface device that has it is the Surface Book 2 15-inch.
And the Surface Studio.
And Surface Studio, right, yeah.
I think about a year ago, you had talked about Microsoft Home Hub. What was that going to be, to your understanding? A smart home hub server or something more like a service hub for consumers? So Home Hub was a software effort that saw Microsoft building a version of Windows and a UX of Windows that ran on devices like the thing behind me, the Echo Show or the Google Home Hub, sort of smart devices with a screen that, although I don't know if Microsoft were going to make their own one, but OEMs were. Dell, HP were all lined up to build their own sort of smart displays that would run Windows and sign into your Microsoft account and stuff and have that whole smart home tie in with Cortana and whatnot. But that never happened. So game over for that feature, for that idea. That's what it was going to be. It would have competed with the likes of the Amazon Echo Show behind me there.
I think it's funny, by the way, that we forgot to mention how the Xbox Series X is actually a box now.
Well, I described it. It's what it looks like. So I guess.
But it's actually like living up to its whole name. So it's asking about the OLED Spectre. Will I be getting one? I am going to request one from HP. They don't have them ready for review yet. I'll try to get one for a review. What I can tell you about the OLED is it'll get less battery life. OLED is more power intensive. It still gets very good battery life. The Spectre does get excellent battery life, especially if you go for. We got the one with the full HD display. It's 1 watt. So this is the new technology right now. To put that in perspective, most displays are 2 watts, and I know that sounds like, well, what's the big deal? But the display is the biggest draw in power, and cutting that in half is remarkable. So if you really want battery life, get the full HD 1 watt version. The 4K OLED is going to use much more battery life, but it'll still be. I think you'll probably get like 6 or 7 hours out of it, maybe. Which for some people, the trade-off is worth it. For those worried about screen burn-in, this is a new generation of OLEDs for laptops, has new technology in it. It's been on the market for like since early spring, right? Because everybody's been using these things. HP's used them. I think Dell's used them. Maybe Dell hasn't. I think Dell's maybe not. Lenovo's definitely used them. There are a bunch of gaming companies have used them. So these have been already out there. They look really amazing. But there's been no evidence of screen burn-in. That's not to say it's impossible, but if you look even at smartphones, the technology's got better. So they really focus on pixel refreshing technologies, which these all have. So I wouldn't be too concerned with that if you're really fixated on getting OLED. I'd be more concerned with trying to balance out, are you buying this laptop for a really good battery life, or you want a really good display? Because that's going to be the trade-off there. The Surface Pro screen come with OLED or LCD. All Microsoft is LCD. Majority of displays on the market are IPS LCD. OLED's great, but it's also a preference. I know a lot of people who don't like OLED because it's too intense, it's too contrasty. For some people doing photo and video editing, it's not very realistic. It's too much contrast. Where LCD can, Apple doesn't use a lot of OLED either, although they use them in their smartphones now. But they've tweaked them, if you look at, it's funny, if you look at an iPhone OLED, it's nice, but it doesn't feel like a Samsung OLED because they've almost toned down the OLEDness of it. But yeah.
Do you know why Windows 10X is being developed for x86 first? It seems like it'd be a natural evolution to target ARM first and then just tack on x86 support for native backward compatibility. This is a good question. The reason for this is because Win32 program support in any architecture is already emulated on Windows 10X. Because Windows 10X is a modern platform, it doesn't actually have the components required to run Win32 programs natively. So if you are running a Win32 program on Windows 10X, it's running in an emulation layer. So that's already one level of emulation. Adding ARM support on top of that on an x86 architecture, or the other way around, adding x86 support on top of that on an ARM architecture would be an additional layer of emulation, which would make it even slower. So Microsoft doesn't want the opinion out the gate for Windows 10X to be, Win32 programs run terribly on Windows 10X. Don't do it. That'd be bad news. So to avoid that, they're just not doing the ARM one at first. It'll be x86, 64 native at first, because the emulation layer Microsoft thinks is good enough that users won't notice a difference in performance. Once that's out and Windows 10X people have seen it and realize it's fine, then they can introduce the ARM stuff, and then people can complain about that, but it doesn't affect the rest of the Windows 10X reputation. So that's the reason. They don't want emulation on emulation to be the reason why people don't buy Windows 10X. And I assume they think they can improve the emulation performance over time as well on ARM.
Yes, I was saying, plus OLED is expensive. It's actually not as expensive as you think. Who was doing it one recently? I think it was HP. Maybe it was Dell. No, Dell I don't think uses LCD. Someone was offering, I think it was HP, and sometimes the 4K version is actually cheaper in it's more expensive than a non-OLED. Yeah, OLED isn't really significantly more expensive. I think but it is harder to source. You don't get as much options. You're very much reliant on what Samsung or maybe LG will make for them. Surface headphones are included free here in Canada with the purchase of a Surface Laptop 3. Well, that's a cool combo. I walked into a Microsoft store yesterday in New York City. And I love Microsoft. I love their stores. But oh my God, was that staff aggressive. It's like, I'll walk over to the headphones and be like, oh, could I help you anything with those? Those are our headphones. If you have a question, no, it's fine. Thank you. Just looking. Then I walk over to the laptop. it'd be the same girl like 2 minutes later, like, oh, do you have any questions about the Surface laptop? I can have. I'm like, nope, still looking. She did it 3 times within like 5 minutes. It was the same person. And it literally felt like she didn't recognize I was the same human. And so, like, I was like, it was very weird. I get it. That's what their job is. And she was very nice, but at the same time, I was like, chill the hell out. Do you know I want to do that? Do you know who I am? I own all these devices. I didn't do that.
Was it ever explained why the Surface Buds were delayed? No. They did not say. They just said that it's delayed. We speculated that it's because the app that they're building for it isn't ready yet. But could be hardware issues. We don't know.
Could be manufacturing. It could be they wanted to launch it in all markets because it was going to launch just US only. Now it's launching globally. It was just going to launch in black. Now it's going to launch in black and dark gray, what some people call white. So there's benefits to the delay. But yeah, we don't know the actual reason. I imagine there could be issues. Battery life is not where they want it to be. The audio is not where they want it to be. Maybe someone in the meeting was like, hey, I could do this cool thing to enhance sound. They're like, cool. How long would that take? I need about 4 months. We don't know. We'll try to figure it out. But
is Surface Neo not OLED then? Microsoft hasn't said anything about the displays on either Neo or Duo, so we don't know. But I would be surprised if the Neo.
I think they're LCD
for the Duo as well.
Yeah, because they've claimed that they're the thinnest LCD displays.
Oh yeah, you're right. There you go. They're LCDs.
Yeah, let me make sure. But
I thought that might have just been for the Neo. I guess the Duo as well.
Yeah, it's the thinnest LCD in its class.
Well, yep. For the Neo or both?
I think it's for the Duo.
Oh, for the Duo. Well, there you go. Yeah, it's an LCD. That could change, though. Honestly, the display tech could very much easily be switched for an LCD. For an OLED, sorry.
Yeah.
Yeah, the Neo. Sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, Neo is definitely LCD, but yeah, I don't know. Who knows?
All right, a couple more questions, and I think that's it for today.
If you're looking for a discounted Surface Pro to purchase, is there a previous model that still holds the test of time? I mean, the Surface Pro 6 is pretty solid.
Yeah.
And a lot of people the Surface Pro 6 technically can get better battery life than the Surface Pro 7 because the battery is actually a little bit larger and the performance is very good. Surface Pro 7 has way better instant on, in my opinion. Like it goes, I believe, 3 days before it goes into a hibernation. So that means every time you open that lid, it's just on. It's very much like an ARM one. It's actually better. It's very impressive. Surface Laptop also does that too, with the Intel version at least. You also get Wi-Fi 6, faster RAM. The performance is much better on the new Surface Pro. But for battery life and for regular computing, Surface Pro 6, if you can get it, is on sale. If you can find it, it's a good deal to save money on. Still worth purchasing. Surface Pro 5 too. Yeah, I think although I've got the Pro 5, is that when they switched to quad core? I think that's still the dual core model.
I think Pro 6 is quad core, yeah.
Yeah, so the Pro 6, you're going to get much better performance, especially for multi-core support, obviously. So that's kind of a big thing. I would try to get a Pro 6 if you could.
Yeah.
How well did Surface headphones sell? No idea. Yeah. I mean, I'd be surprised if, like, they're a hit. I think... At this point, I think all they can hope for is that they sell enough that they could warrant a second version.
So you say that. I actually heard a bit ago that there is a version 2 of the headphones in the works.
Yeah.
I don't know how concrete that rumor is, but that's what I've heard.
I wouldn't be surprised. Like I feel like that they have a little bit more leeway. Like I'm pretty sure the Surface team isn't like one generation didn't sell great, cancel it. Like I know a lot of people are like, yeah, but Nadal, I don't think that. I think when they have an idea, they stick to it. I think they give out basically 3 generations to try it.
Also,
and then
they're headphones. It's like it's an accessory. If you don't sell many of them, okay, whatever. Doesn't mean anything.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, because a lot of that research overlaps with other stuff that, I mean, you have to build speakers for laptops. They're already doing a lot of acoustic studies and creation, and they learn from that. So
if Microsoft were building these accessories to sell mass market, they wouldn't charge them at 349 starting, or 249 for the earbuds. They'd be cheaper than that. I don't think Microsoft is too bothered about how many they sell.
I think what would happen, they're going to definitely do a second one. The second one will come out. Then it's like, are the reviews good? Are the reviews saying, oh, this is much better now? This is really impressive. And then do they sell as well, if not better? If the reviews come out and they say they're terrible, they really missed the boat on these things, and then no one buys them, then they, who knows? But I wouldn't be worried that they're not going to do another version. Does the new Spectre 360 13-inch or 15-inch support more than 16 gigs of RAM? I forgot about the 15-inch, but I wouldn't be surprised if HP is going to refresh that at some point because it's going over a year old. I mean, they did an OLED refresh, but that was just a screen change. But I think that one is almost a year old, so they may be wanting to refresh that. No, for the 13-inch, it's 16 gigs only. But this is where the XPS is a little bit better. The Dell 2-in-1 9370 does have an option for up to 32 gigs of RAM, which is crazy. It's going to be expensive. It is soldered. So if you commit to that, you're committing to it. But you can get a 13-inch convertible with 32 gigs of RAM if that's your thing. And yeah, that'd be XPS.
Well, the Neo
How'd you get
5...
this?
Sorry, go ahead.
So I was just asking about how we got the sweaters. We talked about at the beginning of the podcast. They're from Microsoft. And there's an article up on Windows Central talking about it right now. So with all the other people who got them.
Yeah, they've reached out to us and asked if we wanted them. Will the Neo have 5G? We don't know. Microsoft hasn't.
They talked about it. They're not saying no, but they're not saying yes. I think they'll probably come out with a 4G version, and then they may come out with a 5G later.
Yeah.
But 5G is still a little bit early. I think they're testing 5G, but they weren't ready to commit to saying it has 5G right now because there's a lot of variables in there, including battery life, right?
Mm-hmm. Okay, I think that's it for today. Thank you guys for tuning in, as always. We'll be back next week for the last live episode of the year. Until then, goodbye.